Do you like the Oakland A's? Are you a fan of the Golden Knights? Do you love the Los Angeles Chargers? Well then, my friend, you're in the right place. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show with your host, Jake the Snake Silva, brought to you by the Spotlight Sports Network.
You know, I find this interesting. And yes, I do pay attention to the NBA as well. But you know what I find interesting? We're in a culture in the NBA now that some teams, there's barely any development in the NBA anymore. I mean, you're getting development in the G League and a couple of other places, or if you're going into one of those organizations that are not as popular, they don't draw a lot of free agents, but they're all about developing young kids. We're in this position where now a lot of competitive teams much rather boost the team to going and getting superstars. So here's what's interesting that I think we will very much touch upon by the time the playoffs start is the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, you're looking at it front and back. They look like they are buying themselves into a championship. Do we buy ourselves into a position and a job? Do we buy ourselves into something that in the end is just going to end up making, in the end, we're going to get this accolade. We're going to be good. And then I don't even think we see so much of competition in the NBA anymore. Why do you think that some of these other teams like the Lakers and LeBron James and a bunch of these, Utah, a lot of these other teams, all I can say is this, because a lot of people are starting to put together the Nets, they're bringing in, they got DeAndre Jordan, they got Blake Griffin, they got Marcus Aldridge, they got James Harden, they've got Kyrie Irving, they got. It's kind of interesting because right now everybody's looking at this Nets team as like a super team, but think about sometimes Think about some of these other players, okay? Only about a couple have won a championship. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. James Harden hadn't won a championship. He was very close to even getting himself into a championship the second he had Chris Paul in Houston. Now Houston's obliterated. They've now become an absolute laughingstock, and it's terrible. Then, here's what's interesting, Mark, here's what's interesting about, DeAndre Jordan, part of Lob City. I mean, think about the Clippers team. Clippers team was all about Lob City, but the development in it just didn't work out. They couldn't even get past the second round of the playoffs. I mean, that's how hard that the Clippers were really just outdoing themselves. Right now, the Nets, with Kevin Durant, Kyrie, James Harden, DeAndre Jordan, and Blake Griffin, and a lot of these other players, it's like they're trying to buy themselves into a championship. Last time I checked, really to getting yourself into a championship all has to come from chemistry. It all has to come from making sure, things got to click. Because the Nets may be an overpowering offensive team, but when it comes to defense, are we sure about them really being legitimate enough of winning a championship? I look at some of these other teams, and look, a lot of people can say, LeBron started this whole thing. The Miami team was one that was really interesting. Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade and Shane Battier and Ray Allen and Mario Chalmers, Donis Haslam. They had a lot of role players off their bench. And they only had a good coach that made his way back into the finals again, and Eric Spoelstra. I never see, I told everybody, he's not that bad of a coach. He's just got to have at least the right personnel with the right guys. And now having Jimmy Butler and a lot of these guys, Bam Adebayo, this team is really looking good. That's why Miami is in a position where they would be competitive in the next couple of years. And look at all these other teams that are defensive-minded. I mean, this is what's interesting to me. When people rant and rave about the Brooklyn Nets, yes, they are a really good team. Yes, they can generate a lot of points and such. But when you get to those tough, grinding moments in the game, now I know you're going to get experiences from a lot of those guys. But how far is that really going to go until somewhere somebody's going to end up figuring you out? And again, a lot of people have spoke their minds. Stephen A has spoken his mind about Kyrie. A lot of people have spoken their minds about, all of this and that. So all I can say is that I think the Brooklyn Nets are a good team, but I just feel like we're overhyping them too much. They'll put up numbers, they'll put up points. They're really good. But I don't think at this point, when they're buying themselves into a championship, is one that you'll really look at and go, I don't even think that they're that defensive. I've seen teams that actually have worked their ways with what they've got. And this is what's interesting. When you think of the Lakers, and everybody kind of looked down at the Lakers the second that the bubble went. But LeBron and Anthony Davis was able to make that work. And they had a really good bench. They were able, and they even got better with it. The second they get Dennis Schroeder and Montrezl Harrell, this is a team that they've got a lot of really good role players. You don't just win the championship strictly by superstars. You got to have at least a good bench too. These are some of these things that I'm sure, looking down on the road, when you look at Brooklyn, this is championship or bust for them. I mean, good luck. Good luck. But when you start to get smoked by some of these teams that are real good defensive and they could figure you out in a heartbeat, it's not going to be that simple and easy.